Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the Primera REF show. We are officially one quarter through the season. We've had 10 game weeks now. We've had 200 games that we will have spoken about by the time we end this episode. Liam, are you as exhausted as I am already?
No, give me more. Can't wait. Bring on the
more,
halfway mark.
More. It's mad to think, it never really actually dawned on me. Come to think of it, after 10 games, we'd have 200 games played. But it is right. You have 20 games a weekend. That's just math, isn't it? So, it is a crazy old league, is Primera REF. First and foremost, how have you been, Liam? It's been over a week since I last spoke to you. Obviously, I was in Disneyland at the weekend, so I wasn't as in tune with El Pozo as I should have been. So I do apologise for anyone who was maybe looking for some results, tiles and tables and highlights. I was too busy eating turkey legs and drinking beer in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, that seems reasonable enough. And obviously allowing me to be in charge of things like things that look pretty is never a good idea, Nick. So I decided to just let things go a bit quiet for the weekend and await your return.
Now, and returned we have, and we've come back to, I think, what we've been anticipating a lot of, to be fair, Liam. Plenty of managerial changes. We've had a further 3 casualties so far in the last week since we did our last show. That takes it to now 6, I believe, new managers out of 40. The first one was the day after we recorded. We did say that Joseba Echeverria, is that the way we say it?
Yeah. Well, you won't have to say it anymore. Don't worry. I don't think he's coming back to Primera RFEF anytime soon. So it's the last time you have to say Echeverria.
Yes, that's the one. Less of him, the better, I suppose. And I imagine Real Murcia fans are thinking the same, aren't they? Because he has been replaced. It is Adrian Colunga who has been stepped up from the B team. I don't think he is the final solution for Real Murcia, Liam, if I'm right in thinking they are on the lookout. However, 2 wins out of 2, could he get the job full time?
Yeah, well, we said last week, didn't we, that Fran Fernandez potentially could come back because they've still got to pay him anyway. I'm sure Fran Fernandez won't be up for that. It would be not something I'd be doing if I was going to get paid anyway. Why would I go back to a club that sacked me? But I suppose there is a possibility here, not only if they had to pay off Echeverria, and I'm not sure the agreement's been reached yet on that one. And as I understand it, they've got 14 players or something with whom they have to come to an agreement in terms of financial payoff. So this is a club, obviously, that's a big club for this level, but they're looking at some fairly serious debts in terms of getting rid of people that they don't want. And of course, Goyria, the sporting director, also left. So you do wonder whether Colunga, if he does all right, for the next few games, whether they might give it to him simply because it'd be quite expensive at this stage to try and get somebody else in, and they've got quite a lot of financial baggage to clear in the next few months, haven't they?
Well, that's exactly it. This is, a level that is famed for not being the richest that you'll find in any, football system in the world. So taking these big hits on a manager that you brought in for big money to pay him off is a big challenge. And, why not give it to the B team manager? This is, the idea about Primera REF to a certain extent is where you can see it as a bit of a grassroots. And, he's got 2 wins out of 2. It's better than his predecessor has done so far. So why not let him step up? It'd be interesting to see what goes on this weekend. Maybe this could be his final interview if he gets a result up in this coming game week. Another change, this time at Nasica Tarragona, Liam. Luis Cesar San Pedro has been relieved of his duties. He returned to the club at the back end of last season with just 2 games remaining, replacing Danny Vidal. This third stint hasn't quite worked out for him, has it?
It hasn't, and I have to say, I think almost from the first day I saw him in his first press conference, I just felt like he didn't really want to be there. Maybe he's just a bit of a dour individual, but he just didn't look happy, did he really? And I think he came in to help out and try and sort things out and try and get them out of Primera RFEF, which they've been very close to doing on a number of occasions. Would you like to mention the nearest that they got to getting out of Primera RFEF? Should we leave that for another podcast?
I was going to say I've kind of got to walk the tightrope nowadays a little bit out of bragging and professionalism, but I won't mention it. There are plenty of other people that mention it regularly enough for that to go on. But I completely agree with you. It just didn't feel right this time. And obviously he's had, some fantastic memories with Nastic. I believe he was the chap who got them promoted to La Liga way back when, if I remember rightly. And it just doesn't felt right. I did read into the statement they put out, Liam. I don't know if you saw this, that it wasn't just the results on the pitch which were being sort of like offered up as an excuse for his sacking. It was also the mentality, the approach to games. And, that just feels like there's maybe a little bit more to scratch at there in terms of why Nastic decided to pull the trigger, because, as I'm sure we'll get into, I didn't actually think the game was that bad. Result aside, at the weekend, I don't think Nastic played that badly, but it's enough basically to see that actually we need to make a change. And they've brought in a manager who has had recent success at this level. They brought in Cristobal Parayaro, the former Racing Club de Ferrol manager, who got promoted 2-3 seasons ago and solidified them in Segunda. I know you've probably spoken about him a fair bit in the last 18 months. He's got a bit of a job on his hand, but he's got a good base to work with here, hasn't he, to achieve success?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? San Pedro, as we've documented before, probably his squad this season wasn't as strong as the squad last season. Lost some very, very good players. Bitonaro being perhaps the best example of somebody who was not irreplaceable, but very, very hard to find somebody as productive in terms of goals and assists as he was last season. So he didn't have, for me, such a good squad. But yeah, I think Cristobal Paralo was a great hire. I think he did a really good job at Racing de Ferrol. And I suppose they did when they went up to Segunda that one season that they had when they did really well before they had a dreadful season. They did have some very good individuals in that side. But I suspect he's a really decent coach from what we've seen of him at this level to get them there in the first place. And yeah, it feels like a really good hire to me. I know that the opinion on the ground in Tarragona has been a bit divided, but I think he'll probably do a pretty good job with his side. And I think he'll certainly have them up in and around the playoffs. And I think with the squad that they have this season, as I say, that's an achievement. It was an expectation for the last few years. This year, it feels like an achievement to me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Eldense were also sniffing around, so I think Nastic maybe had to move quickly to get their man. We was sort of rumoured coming through last night, wasn't it? But it has been confirmed this afternoon. Another quick turnaround in managers, this time in Zamora. Obviously, we broke the news yesterday that Juan Sabas, the long-term manager at Zamora, had been relieved of his duties. He's had a bit of a hero send-off, to be fair, Liam, because obviously he's done such a fantastic job for the club, and it's kind of just not working out for them so far this season. Starting reasonably well, but it's just that, lost 4 of the last 5. You're not going to keep your job by doing that. They've brought in a bit of a weird replacement, though, because we've spoken about Paralo there, and there are other managers available. They've gone for Oscar Cano, who
Cano, not Cano.
Cano, sorry, beg my pardon.
Yeah.
not that special "n" that's in there. Oscar Cano.
Jordy came later on, and you got Cat as a het later on. So we need to get it sorted early in the show, Nick.
I've been too out of it. I've been too much going on in Disneyland to be practicing my Spanish. I'm sorry, Liam. So Cano, this level, last time he was here, he got relegated. He is not well liked for his stint with Deportivo de La Coruña at this level in a season where they were sort of expecting to bounce back into Segunda. Expectations were high, and then last season you would have spoke about him, but only very, very briefly, as they only had 5 games in charge of Tenerife. After the signings we've seen Zamora make, this doesn't feel like a very inspiring appointment. Andrew Gillen messages on Twitter today to say, my thoughts and sincerest condolences are with Zamora fans. This is not good, is it?
It's a bizarre one because I think the situation, I didn't know much about his time at Sabadell or Deport, but I do know about Tenerife. Obviously, as you say, he started last season in Segunda with Tenerife. I felt at Tenerife he had no chance of success really because he was clearly appointed by the powers that be as essentially a mate of the powers that be, and that's why he got the job. And he was under huge pressure from day one. But this is going to be exactly the same, Nick, because as you say, his record is poor now across 3 different clubs. Sabadell, Deport, and Tenerife have all seen him come and go and not do much for them. And this is a club again with high expectations, not perhaps at the same level of those 3 clubs at that stage of their existence, but certainly Zamora expect to be in and about the top 5 at least after the money they've spent, and that's why Sabas is being got rid of, because he's not obviously last season when he got them to sort of just outside the playoffs, that was all right. But when you've invested what they've invested over the summer, they expect more than just outside the playoffs. I cannot understand why you'd hire Oscar Cannon to do that, because for me, he's under pressure from day one in any job he gets nowadays until he gets one right. And at the moment, he hasn't got one right anytime recently. So it seems a very strange appointment to me. And I think, as you said, there are other coaches out there who would probably come with less baggage than this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll watch, and we do hope it works, out for him. Everyone deserves a shot at redemption, I suppose, Liam. But when you get Depor fans messages saying, this is a bad move, and you see the results he had with Sabadell getting relegated down to Segunda F, and like you say, maybe we can't draw too much on the Tenerife experience, but 5 games at the start of the season isn't a lot, is it? But we'll keep an eye on that with interest. Copa del Rey news: 11 Primera F sides live to fight another day, and nearly all of them will play Segunda opposition in the next round, Liam. And Ourense will get another La Liga side after a fantastic victory against Real Oviedo. It was quite a good round for the Primera F sides, wasn't it, Liam?
Yeah, I think it was okay. The highest profile casualties, I suppose, are, interestingly, Nastic, who we've just mentioned, have got rid of their coach, Ibiza, who have a new coach, and Merida. All those sides were in the playoffs last season, and they all lost to sides from lower down the pyramid. But you know what? I doubt they'll be overly bothered, by that. I would think in each case their priority is certainly the league, and we see this reflected one level up in Segunda. Lots of sides not really that fussed about getting knocked out of the cup. But for a team like Ourense, fantastic. They actually are qualified for being in the Copa del Rey because of what's going on in the Copa Federación, not because of being in Primera F. And that means that effectively their ranking is lower than a Primera F side, which is why they got a Real Oviedo in the last round, the only side from the lower reaches of Primera F. In fact, the only Primera F side who could have got a La Liga side because of this separate route that they took to qualify for the Copa del Rey. And because they still are in that bracket, they will get another La Liga side in round 2. And of course, that was their first win of the season in a competitive fixture, which was amazing. But I think only one other side now from Primera F, because there have been quite a few Segunda F sides going through and Tercera F sides as well. Only one Primera F side will also get a La Liga team in the second round. Most of them will be playing Segunda sides, so that will be interesting, because clearly there's not much in terms of league positions. There's only one league between them. It'd be interesting to see how those matchings work out.
Where will your heart lie for those fixtures, Liam? I know it's been questioned a lot so far this season, but will it be with the Primera F on a cup run, or will it be the Segundas? But I'm sure you can love both. I'm absolutely positive of that. It'd be very interesting for Ourense as well, because I believe they went on a bit of a decent Copa del Rey run last season as well. I think they knocked out a couple of sides. I think Leganés was one of them. I'd have to double check that. But they are clearly kings of the cup. And we'll, again, see who they get in the next round too. We spoke last week as well, Liam, about some amendments that needed to be done to FBS. We've said it's taken too long, so the decisions being a bit weird, and the constant checking of goals is maybe not necessary. We have had that first amendment come into force this weekend. The fourth official will now check all goals, and the referee will only get involved if there's anything debatable, which basically just needs referring to him. So hopefully this is less time him spending looking at goals unnecessarily, and hopefully a few more modifications to come. If they're willing to make them now, then hopefully they're willing to make some more if needed.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? We were saying last week about the things we didn't like, and we thought it was going to have to wait till next season. So fair play to them here. They've come in and looked at something. For me, one of the more minor things that needed to be altered. I think it is something that delays proceedings and doesn't really need to. In many cases, it seems very formulaic that they go across there. And so, yeah, this ought to speed up things up a little bit. But I think some of the big things that need to be addressed in terms of time limits, in terms of making decisions. But then again, in Segunda this weekend, we've seen a decision that took 6 minutes, even with a booth. So it's a difficult one to decide on, whether there should be a time limit on that, whether there should be more controls over what you can claim for in terms of what you're allowed to put your cards in the air for. I think, as I said before, yellow cards is ridiculous, for instance. But how do you avoid people using it to waste time at the end of games? Again, very difficult to say. You can't make an appeal if you give people 2 appeals then they should be allowed to use them as and when they choose. But yeah, the basic principle, as you say, is that they've made a quick change to something which clearly wasn't working. And I would love to think that they would address one or two of these other issues before the end of the season as well. But we're moving in the right direction. Let's give them credit where credit's due.
Yes, absolutely. And also proves our letters are getting through, Liam. Someone must be reading them, because these are things that we are definitely referring to the Primera RF to take a look at. So hopefully they'll pick up a few more of our next ones, including letting us watch Primera RF abroad as well. So hopefully that one's next. We've got this last news story. Confusion is a complete right word here, Liam, because I've been trying to keep up to date with it. I've been trying to talk about it. I don't actually fully understand what is happening in Cartagena right now. We've got the prospective new owner, Alejandro Arribas. He announced that he's all, set and ready to buy the club. Came back in the next day saying that some of the conditions have changed around the sale and that he won't be buying it yet. Odd.
Yeah, all very bizarre, and it all surrounds as well. There's been another thing come out today from one of the peñas of Cartagena, because you've got the situation where Felipe Moreno, who essentially appears to have a very, very substantial interest, shall we say, let's put it politely, in both Real Murcia and Cartagena. Now, essentially, that wasn't a big issue when Cartagena was still in Segunda and Real Murcia were in Primera RF, but they're now both in the same grupo. That can't be good. And neither can it be good. I thought this sale, to be honest, had gone 3 months ago. I thought it'd been sorted out in the summertime. And as I say, Alejandro Arribas had this big press conference, said, yes, I'm all ready to buy it. I'm going to pay €6 million, all done. And then he sort of sent a letter out the next day saying, well, I can't, because when the paperwork's been sent to me, some things have been changed. So now I think that the Peñas at Cartagena have had enough and want Moreno out, basically, and have essentially written to the relevant authorities and said, look, we're very worried about this. This guy appears to own a controlling interest in two clubs that are competing in the same grupo. And let's face it, his priority is probably going to be to the bigger club of the two, Real Murcia. So what happens when these two teams play each other, for instance? And obviously he's only the owner, so he can't affect exactly what goes on the pitch. But this conflict of interest surely cannot be allowed to exist. And you would think that Cartagena, the Peñas at Cartagena, are pointing this out very clearly, although everyone seems to know anyway, but no one seems to be prepared to do anything about it, because they want the sale to go through, and that maybe an investigation of Moreno's involvement in both clubs will eventually force his hand and make him sell the club. Because why has he not just gone through what he said he'd do? Why has he changed the paperwork? Has he changed the paperwork? Confusion is absolutely the right word, isn't it? Let's hope it gets sorted for the sake of all Cartagena fans very quickly.
Yes, very, very bizarre. We'll try and make sense of it, maybe do like a thread or something. But I think, to be fair, as you said, it is far too complex to put down into words. So, yes, we shall keep an eye on that one as well. Shall we talk about some football that happened this weekend, Liam? I'm very excited to talk about the football.
Me too. And I'm delighted, of course, feeling very smug this weekend, because I chose 3 games, and in my 3 games there are 11 goals. So there you go. After our barren spell between us last weekend, I've actually got some goals to talk about in Grupo O. And I started with Lugo 2, Baracaldo 2. First goal scored by Baracaldo in the opening 45 minutes. Those of you who listen to the Pozo en Directo will have noticed, hopefully, that I pointed out that thanks to the league's official statistician, that in the first 9 games of the season, Baracaldo had never scored in the first half. The other more unfortunate stat for them is that they've gone ahead in the last 3 away games and they've drawn them all. But I don't know about you, Nick, but I think they win this game without the intervention of a referee. And yeah, shall we just say that the referee has previous with Baracaldo? Tell us a bit more about Cueto.
I was going to say, he's certainly not a friend of Baracaldo. There've been some very questionable decisions given against him in big games over the last couple of seasons, hasn't there? And one of them was in, I think it was the Segunda RF playoff final against Orihuela at the end of the 2023-2024 season. And this, penalty, Liam, it's really, really against them. It's very, very questionable, isn't it? But it's one of those where, I don't know, the doubt... You've got to give the referee the benefit, but like those kind of inferences and those kind of suspicions do play a part of it, don't they?
They do, and I'm not suggesting in any way that Senor Amigo is corrupt, but you do wonder why. You've got to be thinking that there is something about this, that a series of decisions, even if he's not consciously, having any sort of bias against Baracaldo. I just think that there's other appeals that Baracaldo have made in this game that are very similar and that haven't been given, and that this one is given. And yeah, fair play to Lugo, for getting a point out of the game, and fair play for Baracaldo, who have got overall a decent result. Let's not forget that going into this game, Lugo had 1-3 and drawn one of their first 4 games at the Ancho Carlo, so they are a strong side at home. But yeah, it did leave a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, I have to say. I didn't think it was enough of a decision to be giving as a penalty. And another goal for San Bartolome, Nick. I'm hearing rumours that his release clause has gone up to 50 million euros now. So probably best if Athletic Club don't bother,
Yeah. That being said, I was listening to another podcast today that described Athletic Club in terms of financial muscle as the Real Madrid of the North, and yeah, maybe they should be slapping a 50 million euro release clause on him, or just locking him in a cupboard in a Mel de la Sota. Should be just keeping him there under lock and key, saying you can't have him, he's too important. But yeah, great to see him on the score sheet once again. Over to Galicia, Liam. Pontevedra 4, Zamora 1. The Juan Sabos nail in the coffin.
Yeah, very much so. I have to say, Nick, sometimes you see teams, don't you, that change their coach after a performance like this. It just felt like they're down tools, especially in that second half. Shambolic at the back. I know they were down to 10, but really, really poor. I mean, before they were down to 10, they conceded a really poor goal to a 1-0 down, defence all over the place. Farrell scored again, 2-2 for him, which is great. But as I say, by the second half, the Mora were down to 10 men, sending off just on the stroke of half time. And yeah, after the break, they were shocking. Ribeiro and Brais Avalenda scored again. Ribeiro didn't even start this game. Those two have got 7 goals between them now, which is tremendous. And Pontevedra even had a goal disallowed, so it could have been even worse. Now, the only thing the only thing that saddened me slightly about this particular game was the attendance. Now, I know that Pasarón is 10,000 plus stadium in terms of capacity, and I know that Pontevedra isn't the biggest city in Galicia, and they've got Vigo just down the road. It's only about 80,000 people, I think, but 3,000 people watching this, Nick. Come on, the people of Pontevedra. You've got James there bringing Americans and Brits to enjoy the magic of Pasarón. Why have we only got 3,000 people turning up to watch a team that are currently sitting just outside the playoff positions? Get yourselves down to the Pasarón, join James and all the others cheering them on, because they really deserve it, this team. And let's not forget they're newly promoted. Let's not forget the start of the season. We didn't fancy them at all to do well, and they're really confounding the critics, aren't they?
Yeah, Ruben Dominguez and co doing a fantastic job in Pontevedra, and a club that we're not supposed to have biases here, but we do tend to have little favours. But this would be a great club to get promoted and to be back into professional football as well. They've got the infrastructure. They've got beautiful burgundy and navy kits with.
I knew you had to mention that. I was about to say, don't forget the beautiful burgundy kits.
It's so. I've just written an article about the return of the Kappa Kings for Revista del Partido, and the Pontevedra shirt does slightly get a mention, but yeah, just gorgeous. Everything is looking on the up there, and this is a fantastic win against what is a great side on paper for Zamora. It's just not obviously working for them. Your next game, Liam, the match between the big two.
Yeah, Racing Ferrol 0, Tenerife 2. I have to say it was a bit of a non-event overall, and probably partly down again to a little bit of a shot-shy evening for the home side. Nacho Gil scored in the half-hour mark, and I just thought after that they were pretty comfortable, the visitors really. I didn't really feel that Racing Ferrol lay much of a glove on them. Jimenez had one chance when he went through, keeper saved it pretty well, but overall bit disappointing from the home side, I have to say. And I had a little bit of a panic here. I thought I was getting, incredibly, I couldn't believe that this guy could have a son of this age. We talked about son of Albert Luque last week, didn't we? Scoring for, I think it was Athletic B. And then I saw that Tenerife's second goal was scored by Alberto Ulloa, and I was like, oh my God, Leonardo Ulloa of Brighton fame has got a son old enough. I'm sure he wasn't playing very long ago. I think he could perhaps just about be old enough to have a son if he was a teenage dad or something like that. I did hurriedly go away and check. No, Alberto Ulloa is not Leonardo Ulloa's son. I'm not even quite as old as I thought it was. But yeah, tremendous goal from Alberto Ulloa, by the way. Plays in midfield. I think he's of Chilean stroke Spanish origin, so no, nothing to do with Leonardo, who is Argentinian. But yeah, overall, a big win for Tenerife, wasn't it?
Yeah, it gets them back on track, and it's a big scalp against another side that we expected to be, the one that was leading the chasing pack for Tenerife. And now we've spoken about their results in the last few weeks. Really sort of like slipping off after that fantastic start, and this could be the reset. Let's not forget, Ferrol's not an easy place to go and play football either. So they'll be seeing this as a fantastic result. Back-to-back defeats, so for Racing Ferrol, Liam. Obviously, they're having a bit more of an imbalanced season under Pablo Lopez. They'll be thereabouts, so won't they? Like I say,
yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's one of those where they've had a few disappointing results, but expectations are high there, and they're still in the playoff places, and they would probably go into the season privately admit that Tenerife are hot favourites, even though they're expected to pose the biggest challenge to them. And let's not forget, if they'd won this game, they would actually have gone top and knocked Tenerife off top spot. But conversely, now that Tenerife win this game, I think they are now 4 points clear of the chasing pack. So it just shows you, if you win 6 games out of 6 at the start of the season, you can afford to have a little bit of a dodgy spell, and he's still right up there. One win and they're 4 points clear again. So yeah, Tenerife is very much back on track now.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Grupo Dos, because there are some fun games in there. Maybe not as many goals as there were in Galicia. But starting down in Andalusia with Juventud de Torremolinos 1, Sabadell 1. Bernaldo giving the away side an early lead with a glancing header from the near post, a really good corner. Again, Liam, beautiful Kappa kits, this time in a nice pink motif with the usual Kappa going down the side. But I must admit here, Torremolinos will be absolutely baffled that they didn't go into the break with a goal on the score sheet. A mixture of, excellence from Fioli in the goalkeeping department, and some absolute terrible finishing. There was some real spooned, and spooned is the adjective I'm going to use, chances for the home side in the first half. They'll be kicking themselves they didn't get back in at half time with at least a goal to show for it.
Yeah, they will. And overall, though, I suppose the one thing they would come out of that saying is that they managed to get a result out of it. They weren't downhearted by this. This is a team with so much character about us, and they're great to watch, aren't they? They're just so attacking the way they go about games, especially on their own patch. Certainly a ground that I've only been to, I think, in probably their Segunda Ref days. Might even have been Tercera Ref, It was a while ago I was there, and it was great that day. It is a ground I'd love to revisit, I have to say, this season, because they are tremendous value on their own patch this season, and I say not bad away from home either. So yeah, brilliant. And eventually they did get the goal, didn't they? Which they thoroughly deserved. But as I say, that it really a case of plugging away and not getting downhearted by, as you say, some fairly shocking finishing and some brilliant keeping that kept them at bay in that first half.
Yeah, some fantastic finish with. When I did note in the notes here that Juan Esperaga has got them playing some really nice football for this level. Like I said, we do see a lot of like Route 1 tactics at Primera RFEF, but this is not quite tiki-taka, Liam, but it's ball on the ground stuff, played in close confined quarters, nice 1-2s before trying to catch an opponent on the break. It's really good to watch, and it's really, really nice, and it worked brilliantly for them for this goal. Fioli, as we've said, was excellent in the first half. He was left stranded here from this, finish from Rivera, who just basically latches onto this brilliant cross come through ball is the way I would describe it. So yeah, it was absolutely excellent equaliser, and then both sides, continue to try and kick lumps out of each other, try and find a way forward without really testing the goalkeeper. But it's a solid result for both sides. They'll be looking at the respective league positions going, yeah, this is exactly where we want to be right now.
Yeah, let's not forget Sabadell are still unbeaten, aren't they? And how long is that now? I think it's about, including the cup game, I think that's 11 games. And that's one of the best unbeaten runs in Europe, believe it or not, in the top divisions. That probably obviously went down to Division 8 of Luxembourg or something. If they have 8 divisions in Luxembourg, you might find a team that's played more games and been unbeaten for longer. But I'm sure I saw a graphic recently that said they're right up there with some sides in the top leagues in Europe that haven't lost so far this season in either league or cup. So tremendous from them. Yeah, and totally. We often talked about their issues in terms of getting paid, which hasn't always been something that they've enjoyed getting. But yeah, they're brilliant, and I'm delighted for them. And certainly their challenge at the start of the season was to stay up. And at the moment, although we are still pretty early on, as we know, they're doing exactly what they need in Sabadell, probably overachieving in terms of even what we expected of them.
Yeah, Ferran Costa doing a fantastic job with the Catalan club. Another manager doing a fantastic job is Vicente Paras at Teruel. They continue to defy the odds, Liam, making it 8 games unbeaten in a row now in Primera RF. I say in Primera because they did get beaten in the Copa del Rey in the middle of last week. And, they've looked at the riches of Marbella here, Liam, who have got, one of the most assembled squads in this league. They weren't shy at spending money in the summer, and they just went for them without fear. They went right on the front foot. The great Teddy Sutherland was on the score sheet early on, but his goal was disallowed. But it wasn't too long before Sergio Moreno got them on the score sheet with a fantastic, route one through ball over the top, and he finishes at the near post. And Teruel just looked comfortable for this entire game. Marbella looked absolutely shocking in this match, like they'd never played football before.
Totally agree. And do you know what's interesting about Teruel? They've won a lot of games 1-0, and your association with that is always going to be, get a goal, sit back, defend well, be solid, be difficult to break down. Not a bit of it in this game. A fair play to them. There was not a sense was there at all, Nick, of them just hanging on for the 1-0. They scored fairly early on. And as you rightly said, that Marbella was shocking, and really Teruel could have won this game by more overall. Really impressed by them. Really unimpressed by Marbella. They're on a poor run. They are way below where they should be in terms of the expectation of this squad. And I think Carlos Delerme has got 1 win in the last 8. They've only got 2 wins overall, I think. Not good enough. And we know that a few directivas have shown that they've got itchy fingers this week and pull the trigger. I think he's on very borrowed time down there. I think he really needs to get things sorted quickly because it's not good enough from the squad of players he's got there. I think again he's left Gabri out again, which clearly is a fundamental error on his part. Even though he's a centre half and they didn't score, that's not the point. But yeah, joking aside, he really does need to pull it around, doesn't he?
But it's a centre half that's ultimately led them to concede this goal as well. So the campaign begins now, Liam, in earnest. Get Gabri in, and the results will come. But yeah, I completely agree with you here. Marbella, with the squad that they've got, they should be challenging at the top, and it did look like they were going to for a little while, but like you say, the results haven't gone their way at all. We mentioned earlier that San Pedro had lost his job after a defeat this weekend. There are a couple of things that can guarantee you losing your job at the new Estadio Costa de Ruda. One is losing 3-0 at home. The next is losing 3-0 at home to a filial, Liam. And in this game, again, I don't think Nastic played that bad, but Atleti just played excellently. They got the opener through a header from Jana, just a simple free kick. Wasn't really defended very, very well, and nodded in from the middle of the box. The second goal, also brilliant. I don't know if you've seen this one, Liam. It's an absolute rapper into the top corner of the goal from Ourense. The thing that got me with this is that, yes, there was a check for FVS on a potential foul in the build-up to this, but it's kind of like the Nastic players just down tools and were waiting for a decision to go their way, because Atleti B players just walked through their half unchallenged, and then he was allowed to pick a place in the top corner. It's a great goal, but Nastic should definitely do better with that one, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I think the word I'm looking for here is clinical. As you say, overall, I thought Nastic didn't play that badly, but the 2 goals they scored, Atleti B, in both occasions, they just took full advantage of mistakes, individual mistakes to give Gianni that much space in the box. Ridiculous. And Ortiz, as you say, really shouldn't have been allowed to get the shot in so easily. And the ball shouldn't have found its way to his feet that easily either. So yeah, game over at that point. I think Atleti B, very impressive. But Nastic were okay, but you can't, as you say, lose a game 3-0 to a filial from Madrid as well in Catalonia. That's not going to go down well, is it? The third goal was a bit comical, wasn't it? But it was immaterial by that stage, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does pay me to say that Atletico Madrileño do look very strong, and they're playing some nice football. They've got that really nice Atletico Madrid Total 90 away shirt, which makes me like them a little bit more. And again, they're going to take some stopping in this Grupo Dos because, we've mentioned it a couple of times now. There isn't the same level of challenging that you get in Grupo Uno, maybe. And there's, been a lot of churn at the top of that table. A lot of teams, going up to the top and then coming down to the bottom and vice versa. So, Atleti B just have to keep doing what they're doing, and no doubt they'll be up and thereabouts by the end of the season. And, let's not forget they are the highest spenders in this side of the league as well. So it shouldn't be a surprise that they are top of the league as they are right now. Should we get into some other results? Unfortunately, the next one has also got a filial inside it, but it was Alcorcón 0, Sevilla Atletico 0. The home side now just scoring 2 goals in 6 games, despite having 2 very potent attackers in the form of Mariano and Vladis in their ranks. Surely Pablo Alvarez might be close to leaving as well, Liam. Alcorcón have high expectations for this season.
Yeah, I think so. I think with strikers of that quality, I know Vladis has been out at the start of the season, then he's been injured. Mariano had a suspension, didn't he? But between the two of them, 2 goals in 6 games, that's shocking, isn't it, really? And I think those 2 goals were both actually scored, ironically, the No Costa Daurada, that game that they won in the 100th minute, whatever it was. So, yeah, really poor. The sense, I think, that Pablo Alvarez is too defensive in his approach, and there's not enough attacking intent being shown. And as you said, at the start of the season, you could see that. I think the key signing that made me sit and take notice was Nieto, bringing him in from Zamora, who we know have money to spend at the moment, and still Alcorcón were able to get him, hanging on to Vladis as well when they had an offer for him. You could tell that they thought they were prepared to let him go for nothing next summer, because he could be key to their chance of promotion. Right now, promotion is not looking like a good bet at all. So I would think that Pablo Alvarez is certainly on borrowed time as much as Dilemma is at Marbella.
Agreed. In the next game, Bilbao Athletic 0, Unionistas 0. No win in 6 for the home side, and have only scored 3 goals in 5 home games, so they stay in the relegation zone. But more surprisingly, Unionistas, who at the start of the season, after the results they had, looked like they were going to be marooned at the bottom for the most part of the season, they've snuck out of the relegation zone now on goal difference. That's an excellent job from Mario Simon so far. I think they're unbeaten in 4 games now.
Yeah, I think four clean sheets in a row as well, isn't it, Nick? So really impressive. Obviously, it's very tight down the bottom, and goal difference, as we know, won't make the difference at the end of the season. It'll be goal average. It's just the teams haven't played each other twice, so goal average doesn't really mean anything right now. But yeah, certainly moved them very much in the right direction. Let's not forget, one of those clean sheets was a win in Tenerife. So very encouraging signs for Unionistas fans right now. Less encouraging signs after a miserable October, to be honest, with the exception of the Cup for Guadalajara. Guadalajara 0, Mérida 2. But conversely, the first win on the road for Los Romanos. And Álvaro García, we've mentioned before, the signing in the summer to take the place of Slava up front from Esti Logroñez. I think he was playing Segunda Ref. Another goal, 8 goals in 11. Quite remarkable, hitting the ground running like Slava did last season in Mérida. But no league win in 6 for the home side. We know they've got a very small squad. We know Salifo's out at the moment. They really are struggling at the moment, aren't they? And in this game, they played pretty well, but they could see 2 goals in the first half, and there was no way back from there.
No, definitely not. And very interesting with Alvaro Garcia. I think he's now joint top goal scorer with Jesus Di Miguel, which is good company at this level as well. Let's not forget. So, be interested to see if he can keep firing Mérida up the table. El Dente pick up a win this weekend at home. First league win for the caretaker manager, Claudio Barajan. 2 goals from Dione as they beat Algeciras 3-2, and the second goal, a bit of a Galazzo with the left foot, more like it from Dione. This is what we know he can do at this level, and he is keeping, or certainly looking to keep, that top goal scorer in Primera RFEF trophy in his cabinet with more goals like this. The home side did play the first half with 10 men in, but were twice pegged back, but managed to get the win in second half added time. A bit of light reprieve for El Dente there, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I think if you can play a whole 45 minutes after the break, 1 man down, and again, psychologically to get pegged back twice. I noticed that this week Torrillo scored, and it was allowed, which is head this time, so no dispute about that. But yeah, I think it's a big win. Whether it gets Barragan the job full time, I don't know. But yeah, Dion is key to their chance of success, isn't it? And he's been really sluggish the first section of the season. He's only got 1 goal, I think, before this one. But this second goal, given that I think he's predominantly right-footed, isn't he, Dione? The left foot curler into the top corner from the edge of the box, absolute beauty. If he starts to catch form for them, they'll soon fly up the table, won't they? Osasuna Promesas 1, Celta Fortuna 1. We will spend very little time in this one. Filial versus Filial. Osasuna Promesas stay in the bottom 5. Celta Fortuna stay second. Move us on to the next one.
Job done. Cartagena 0, Villarreal beat 2. A surprise result in the match of the day. Another goal for Alex Ribeiro, who's now got 6 in the season. How his goals would have been well received in Antequera, but now he's doing it for the Filial. But obviously quite a surprise given, Javier Rey has got this team, playing quite well. Is this maybe a matter of off-field issues sneaking onto field, Liam? I'm not too sure, but it's definitely not the result that neither of us expected.
No, I didn't think to see this coming at all. I thought Villarreal were pretty good overall, and Cartagena, one of those where I think they've been effective, efficient around the Javi Reyes. He was quite similarly at Pontevedra. I suppose they were due an off day when their effectiveness wasn't quite as effective as it usually is, shall we say. And this was one of them. So I suppose they move on. And hopefully the off-field issues will be sorted in the next few days and they can concentrate on the football rather than who's their owner. Europa 2, Atlético Sanluqueño 1. 2 more goals for Jordi Cano. He's now got 7 for the season. Remarkable stuff. And Europa back up to 3rd. Conversely, Atlético Sanluqueño have now lost 3 in a row, and this just shows you how tight this league is, doesn't it? Especially Grupo Dos. Atlético Sanluqueño, I think, were unbeaten, weren't they, through the first 6 games or so, and quite a few draws in there. And now, having lost 3 in a row, they're into the bottom 5 because there's only 20 teams. So ultimately, you very quickly are in a situation whereby you can end up being in the relegation zone. 25% of each league, of course, is going to spend next season playing in Segunda Ref.
No, absolutely. And I think, Europa doing exactly what they need to do in this half of the season for me, Liam. Obviously, with one eye on the fact they will have to move in the new year, getting these results at home at New Sardinia is definitely the plan, and it is being executed excellently at the minute. And having a player like Jordi Cano, who is just so much fun. Let's not forget, he is a striker, but he's a striker who plays off the wing more than anything. He's a great luxury to have as a scorer and a provider. Next game, Betis Deportivo 1, Real Murcia 2, a second win for Adrian Carlunga, as we said, already won in the Copa del Rey in the midweek, and he had everything going for him in this one. Obviously, we know Betis Deportivo aren't having the best of seasons, but, still to go away to Seville and get a result here is absolutely brilliant for Real Murcia, and it's a positive result that moves him in the right direction.
It does. You just wonder, though, don't you? Flacos, to me, is offside. I think it's a Kane who plays it forward. He's not far offside, but he's offside to me. If we've got FES with even a half-decent camera angle, not quite sure how they haven't picked that one up. But they don't. It's on the halfway line. Fair play to Flacos. Race is clear, scores the first goal. Betis Deportivo had another player sent off. I don't know how many times that's happened this season, but far too many. They're regularly playing with 10 men, which isn't going to help their cause all season. But they still managed to find an equaliser. I think, interestingly, Gazzaniga, who's for me blows very hot and cold in the Murcia goal, made a brilliant save in the first half. Second half, this Betis Deportivo goal, it's a classic goalkeeper, isn't it? Comes out caught in no man's land. Bad decision from him. But then who pops up with the winner 5 minutes to go? Flacos again. And we've talked before about the kind of service he needs, the kind of goals he scores. Generally, he's not one of those who's going to rise like a salmon and head the ball in from 15 yards out. He needs the ball on the floor, doesn't he? And both of these goals were scored with his feet. And maybe if he can carry on getting this service, he will start providing the goals, and that will move around very quickly up the table.
Yeah, play to your star man's strengths. It's a simple formula at this level, and Flacco scoring twice there, it won't be the last brace he gets this season. In Tarazona, it was Tarazona 0, Ibiza 0. Tarazona still haven't conceded a goal at home all season, Liam, which is fantastic for them. But ultimately as well, Miguel Alvarez isn't enjoying the start he would have liked to his career in Ibiza. Hasn't won a game since taking over from Paco Gemes. 2 league defeats, two league games where he hasn't won, and obviously that Copa del Rey exit. Not the greatest start for the man who we thought basically fancied giving it up at the end of last season. It's not going too swimmingly for it, is it?
No, one does wonder now, doesn't he? I mean, he's presumably based on the island of Ibiza, which could be worse, I suppose. In November, I'm sure there are more unpleasant places to be on the Spanish mainland in terms of weather. But yeah, he must be wondering why he's bothered to come back at the moment. But he keeps telling us how they're all working really hard to turn things around. Maybe that's a little bit of a dig to working hard. Maybe he feels that the squad haven't been working hard enough before he came there. We sometimes get the coaches, don't you, sort of suggesting that the players' fitness isn't good enough. But yeah, not a good start for him. Ourense 1, Arenas de Getxo 0. Tokyo Stars haven't had a good start. Their long wait for a win in the league is over. Ourense finally the 10th time of asking win a league game. In fact, they won 2 games, as we said last week. They also beat Oviedo, like London buses, Nick. But exactly. On the other side of the coin, Ourense played 5, lost 5 away from Gobela. A very similar situation, I think, isn't it, to Europa? In fact, even John Alithia mentioned that in the interview I did with him, sort of saying, we know we need to get as many points as we can on the board at home because we're going to have to move away from Gobela, and also our away form. He didn't mention his away form, but he will have been aware that the away form isn't good enough, and they're now back in the relegation, so a similar situation to Atletico Sanluqueño. It's not good enough just winning your home games if you lose all 5 of your away games, and similarly with Atletico Sanluqueño, if you draw too many and then you start to lose a few, 5 teams going down, that's what's going to happen. It's still very tight down the bottom of that group, as it is in both grupos, but yeah, disappointing for them after just a couple of weeks ago being superb at home to Guadalajara, to then go away from home again and get beaten by a side that hasn't won yet this season. That's not good, is it?
No, it's not a great sign. Obviously, great for Ourense. We really enjoyed their form last season. We have questioned Danny Lasser on this podcast a couple of times, but it's amazing what beating Real Oviedo and the Copa del Rey can do for you. They got those first 3 points on the board, and they're on the way. So we'll see if they can keep it up this weekend. Antequera 1, Hercules 1. Defeat here would have surely spelled the end for Ruben Torres here, but he still hangs on. He was 1-0 down with seconds remaining, and then up steps Ben Hamed to score in a stunning another 100th minute equaliser, and basically saved his job here, Liam, hasn't it? Because, really, there was a bit more at play here where Hercules shouldn't really have been in a position where they were 1-0 down in 99 minutes.
No, it's tricky with him, isn't he? He had those 2 wins we mentioned last week, back-to-back at home against 2 filiales, I think it was, and one of them was a really good win against Atleti B, a very impressive performance. But yeah, the expectations are similar at Hercules to what they are at places like Nasty's, places like Alcorcon, Zamora. I think Hercules expect to be playoffs this season. They're not in the picture at the moment. And yeah, I think a defeat here might have been the end for him. But to be honest, Nick, this was justice because, again, I do not know. Again, I have heard talk that sometimes they've only got a couple of camera angles that they can access, and maybe the camera angle they really need to access doesn't get to them quickly enough. And that's why we sometimes see a long wait, because they're waiting for another camera angle, or maybe eventually they just give up and just go for the one they have got. But whatever the story is here, it's a scandalous decision to disallow Fran Sol's goal in inverted commas for offside. He's clearly not offside. I don't know why they're including in the highlights a replay of this incident, which really doesn't paint the league in a very good light, because he's so far onside, it's embarrassing. And so, yeah, that was very harsh. And at 0-0, they might have gone on and won the game from there. And I don't know. I mean, you probably are a little bit biased towards Javi Jimenez because he used to play for Malaga. Yeah, he gets the ball. Yeah, he makes some contact with the player's leg, but this is not a straight red for me. It really isn't. No. So for me, 2 really rough decisions that went against Hercules and therefore against Torrecilla as well. So I'm delighted that Ben Hamed, who I think was at Morabieta last season, did really well there. Brilliant goal to equalise it up here. And yeah, he lives to fight another week, it would seem.
Yes, not a great game to be in if you're an ex-Malaga player. Not for going there. Fran Sol was also on loan at Malaga too. So, yes, well, obviously great for Ben Hamed to get his goal and to get the equaliser for Hercules. Not so good news is Real Madrid Castilla continuing to click. They beat Talavera 1-0, 5 wins in a row for the Real Madrid B side as they move up to 3rd in Grupo Uno. But even more better news than that, Liam. We don't want to dwell on that one. Real Aviles Industrial 1, Arantero 0. A lovely goal from Kevin Bautista to win it for the home side, who now move into the playoffs as well. Who saw this coming?
No, absolutely unbelievable. I know we've said this, we don't want to sound like a broken record here about Danny Bilal, do we? But we have said a number of occasions, quite a remarkable job he's done there. We liked him at Nastic. We think he was a really good appointment for Real Aviles Industrial, but he had so little time to get things sorted, and he's absolutely hit the ground running with his squad of players, and they really seem to be playing from battling this one out. And Bautista, as you say, scored a beautiful goal in this game. No wins in 7 for Arantero, again, a team that we did tip to struggle, and gives me no pleasure to see that they are struggling. They're in the bottom 5 now, and I think that they've got a really tough task to get themselves out of there. I think they will be in and around there for the remainder of the season. But yeah, Real Aviles Industrial for me is pretty much the story of the season so far, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Goals seem to have dried up for Mingo as well, which is a bit of a shame because he was on quite a run of form previous to these last few games. And then last but not least, Liam, Ponferradina 2, Cacereño 0. Ponfe still not convincing, not really at the levels that we were at. They've won this in the last 20 minutes thanks to a couple of scrappy goals, but they're now only 3 points outside the top 5, getting and battling themselves into that playoff picture. It's quite good news for if you're a Pompey fan.
Yeah, job done. You don't care how you win the games at this stage, do you? They've had a few disappointments along the way. Andorra pokes the first one in from almost on the goal line, and the second one is a long throw that is appallingly defended by the Catalonian defence. And I think Benito still is relying on a big deflection and to score the second for the home side. But yeah, it is job done in terms of not having been brilliant so far and still being very much in touch. Sorry, with that playoff picture. Cacereño, they've only lost 3, Nick, but they've only won 2. So they need to get more goals in their side. I think I've seen a lot of comments from Cacereño fans saying that we really need a number 9 in the January transfer window. They're already looking ahead a couple of months and thinking we've got to get somebody in who can score goals because they are struggling in that department. And you don't win goals, do you? You don't win games without scoring goals. And yeah, at the moment they are looking nervously over their shoulder at the relegation zone, aren't they? So they've performed credibly so far, but they do need to offer more going forward and turn some of those draws into wins.
Get him now, or at least go looking. There's plenty of free agents out there that I'm sure would love the opportunity to play in that beautiful Cacereño Adidas kit. And it's like you said, we've said it a couple of times, don't they? Just don't seem to have the same potency up top. I think everything else behind the striker works really, really well. They do brilliantly at keeping hold of the ball. They play some fantastic possession-based football. They are good at winning the ball back. It's just this final third issue they've got for Cacereño. And as you say, Liam, too many draws, you eventually start to look over your shoulder. And I say that as a Malaga fan speaking from experience. So, yes, it is one they definitely need to rectify. Let's have a little look ahead to this weekend's game. I get the pleasure of picking the 3 games in Grupo Uno that you should be watching this weekend. I am starting in Salamanca with Unionises versus Pontevedra, Saturday at 6 p.m. Mario Simon, obviously unbeaten in 4 there, and Pontevedra also unbeaten in 4. So somebody might be losing that run by 8 o'clock on Saturday evening. I have also gone for Cacereño here. They are hosting Real Aviles Industrial at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Let's see whether they can score some goals here, but you know, a side that isn't shy on scoring at the minute is Real Aviles, so be a really, really good game. And then to end the weekend with Baracaldo versus Ponferradina, a good solid fixture actually. I enjoyed both of those games last season, both home and away for Baracaldo against Ponfe. That's at 6:15 on Sunday evening, Liam. What about Grupo Dos?
Grupo Dos has 3 games for me, and I can't remember what times they kick off. I didn't write it down, so that's a bit slack of me, isn't it? So you just have to find these yourself if you want to watch them. The first one I picked out was Hércules against Europa. I think that should be a really decent game. Europa will be less good on their travels, as we know. Hércules really need to win this game at home to keep that home form, decent home form going, to make up for the fact that they're not doing so well away from Alicante. A rerun of a playoff game last year around Murcia against Nastic, of course, played each other last season in the promotion playoffs, and 2 sides with one with a caretaker coach and one with an entirely new coach. So that could be interesting. And then last of all, Marbella against Alcorcon, the battle of the underachievers. I'm not going to say that whoever loses this game gets potted, but I do think there's a danger here for both of these coaches that if they don't start to turn things around quite soon, they're going to be out of a job. And yeah, let's see how they match up in this particular fixture down in the Costa del Sol.
Absolutely. Just trying to quickly find the times here, but the computer is going quite slow here, Liam. So let's just double check. Hercules against Europa, 4:15 on the Saturday. Real Murcia against Nastic at 8 o'clock on the Saturday night as well. And quickly remind me of that last one, Liam. Was it Marbella against Alcorcon?
Yeah.
A 12 o'clock kickoff on Sunday down on the Costa del Sol, as you said. So absolutely brilliant if you want to go and watch those games. We're at the end, Liam. Have we got any exciting Spanish Segunda news? I've seen content pouring into my inbox in the last few days from the Spanish Segunda show. You have been busy.
We have indeed, yes. We had an excellent fan interview with James Dodd last week, who's an Almeria fan, really, really worth listening to. It's great to do these fan interviews, and it's probably something we need to look at doing with El Pozo as well, getting some people on who we obviously have 40 clubs to cover, and we tend to concentrate on 34 of those 40, but realistically we can only give a fairly general overview of them, and it has been brilliant. One of the best things about this season in Segunda and recording the Spanish Segunda show has been to get fan interviews into the program, because they are so knowledgeable. We have also, from James, been promised an interview with an English-speaking Lugo fan player if we want one, so we might have to follow that one up. Nick, we haven't spoken to anyone at Lugo, have we? So that would be nice. So yeah, what about you in terms of El Partido? What have you got lined up for this week?
Oh, well, we have had the launch of our second issue of Revista El Partido, our dedicated magazine for all things sort of fan culture, football nostalgia. Some great stories in there, including, Racing Santander in Europe, back in 2008. There is a fantastic article from our friend Matt Harrison on his recent trip to the abuelo of Spanish football. He went to see Recreativo Huelva against Loca Deportivo. And also, I mentioned it once or twice in this podcast already. There's a great article about the revival of Kappa kits and how they became the kings of Spain this season in terms of the manufacturers' titles, and how they basically went to the wall a little bit during the noughties, but now they are well and truly back with some beautiful designs, which we can see just behind both myself and Liam. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got the wonderful Alcorcon shirt on display. And then in terms of a podcast, we are going to be talking about Racing Santander this weekend. So another Spanish Segunda link there, because I believe I hear, not that I pay too much attention to the Spanish Segunda as host of El Pozo, they are top, I believe. Are they doing quite well?
Having a great season, yeah. And there's a lot of talk about where they can hang on this year. Obviously, they were top going into, or around the top going to. They were top, I think, just before Christmas. They fell away a little bit around about Christmas, but the last two seasons they missed out on the playoffs very narrowly. 2 seasons ago, last season, they made it to the playoffs but lost in them. So this is the third time lucky, hopefully, for them. And they've had some glorious days in the past, haven't they? So I'm sure that's going to be what El Partido focuses on.
Absolutely. Great to see them back towards the top of the Spanish Segunda. I only joke as well. Of course, I listen to everything Spanish Segunda, and obviously my team are in there too. So I make sure to be well dialed in. But as for now, keep an eye on all things El Pozo on our socials. If you would be kind enough to go and give us a follow on social medias, and if you do listen to this podcast, wherever you get them from, give us a 5-star review. It really does help get the message out there. And we are definitely here to spread the word about all things Primera RFEF, and every little helps. But for now, we'll see you again next week for another round of Primera RFEF football, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Catch you then.